welcome to the webinar, Reform of Vocational Education with Waihanga Ara Rau. We've got Anna Douglas and Katy Cottrell joining us, who are experts in this field and work for Waihanga Ara Rau. So we'll just begin with karakia. Mōri ora, kia mātou, arahina mātou, kia mātou mahi, kimihe, he hurahi, mo te kaupapa, o te mātou ranga hangarau, awhina atu, awhina mai, te pō e here ni a mātou, hui e taia here. So, to begin, I'll hand over to Katy.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. Apologies. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Katy tōku ingoa. Hi arohangi aho ki a Waihanga Ara Rau. So I'm an assurance specialist at Waihanga Ara Rau, and I've been there approximately 8 weeks, so nice and fresh into the Workforce Council. Prior to that, I was a technology teacher for 15 years, predominantly in hard materials. So I've been in the classroom environment for that time. I have another hat as well, which is I'm on the actual TENS Council. So I've recently joined Hamish in that space as well. So 2 new hats for me this year. So it's really exciting. So today we're going to go through a section of what the Workforce Councils do. So we're going to break it into 3 areas, and those 3 areas are what are the Workforce Development Councils and what they do. The second is looking at the BCAT Skill Standard Review, and we've kind of got Anna Douglas here, who's our resident expert and leading the review at the moment as well, kindly joining us today as well. So she'll be taking on that part of the presentation as well. If there's any patai, any questions that you have as well during this discussion, please just feel free to put them into the Q&A, and we'll answer those as best we can. And also feel free to put those through to Hamish or myself as well with email addresses, etc. We're more than happy to take those questions as well as best we can. So in terms of Workforce Development Councils, we can talk hours and hours about all the different councils. And Anna, feel free to chip in if there's anything I miss as well, especially being new to the space. But essentially, you may know the Workforce Development Councils as ROVE, as the old ROVE. So essentially what we were before that was, that's the title of what we were. And what we were doing there in terms of now, what we're doing is going to 8 different areas of the council. So our logo represents a plaited rope, essentially. And what we've got is that all the different colours interlinking with each other to create basically a shared kaupapa and a purpose that we have, which helps pull our integrity and pulls us all together as a stronger council all together and pulls us forward. So, like I said, we can talk about all the different councils for hours, but predominantly we're going to work on, me and Anna will discuss Waihanga Ara Rau's BCAT review going forward, but I just wanted to give you some context as to what those councils are and what they look like and how you can request information from them if you need to talk to somebody specifically about any of those things in terms of skill standards or questions with qualifications, etc. going forward. So within those councils, we've got ourselves, which is construction and infrastructure. We've got Toi Mai, who's looking at technology, arts and recreation. And then we've got Toi Tu Waiora, who looks after our community health, education and social services. We have Hanga Ara Rau, which is similar to us, but we're also doing manufacturing, engineering and logistics. Muku Tangata, which is our people, food and fibre. And the Maori name, apologies, not there, is Ringa, which is our services. So it covers the hospitality aspect within that space as well. We have a shared services, which is which covers our IT, and that's kind of relevant to you guys, but essentially that's how we all kind of operate under one roof. We've been running 2 years now. We have offices in Auckland and Wellington, and we also have remote workers scattered throughout New Zealand. And I think Waihanga Ara Rau's, quote me if I'm wrong, Anna, I think there's about 300 members of staff within that area working remotely as well. So there's quite a few of us around, which is, you know, really fantastic. So what we do is a good question. So I'm just going to move forward. We work with industries to help maintain a strategic view on basically the skills and industries and what is required now and for the future, and how they will feed into the vocational education system and help deliver that to, going forward. We bring consistency to learning outcomes, and that's across the country in all modes of learning, and we make sure that the employers have the right skills and right skills and employment access to the, you know, to the right people. So we set standards. We're standard setting body, and we develop qualifications and help shape the curriculum of vocational education. We endorse programs prior to approval by NZQA, and we improve outcomes for industry and priority learners and provide advice to our tertiary education commission, the TEC. We also work closely with Te Pukenga and PTs arranging training and respond to workforce skills needs, and lead to awards of qualifications and provide and facilitate on-job and off-job training. So we do lots of different things within our institution in our little area. Just going to move us on. So you can see from our vocational pathways that we have at school level, we are looking at levels to 1 to 3, and those are the areas that we actually engage with, and all the different subsections within the councils. So just put there so you can have a look at those as diagrams. And then in the workforce, we obviously look at levels between 2 to level 6, and then those are the areas that we covered there as well in terms of those subsections. Like I said, there's a really brief whistle stop in terms of what the council is, but this is why we're going to focus on the particular area of what we do in Waihanga Ara Rau. So it's moving us on into the Waihanga Ara Rau space. So we represent 10 industries, and I can see them all there. And we represent a diverse range of industries, ranging from waters to finishing trades to obviously civil and construction. So a very diverse section that we actually work in, and between us we see very diverse aspects of the work as well, which is very rewarding, and we really love that as well as going forward as council. Okay, I just want to bring attention to this page here as well, which is a really interesting development project that we have been doing in our council. It's just our workforce information platform. Basically, it looks at the demographics, pathways, and training. And what it looks at is looking at the gaps in workforce, looks at the analysis through heat maps, you name it, regions, etc. It's a really, really useful tool, and particularly I've flagged it here essentially so that our students, our parents, etc., if they want to look at like career pathways and the potential of what a skill shortage of workforce supply and demand is needed, this is a really good analysis tool there, particularly to show your students or your gateways or your careers advisors in that space there as well. So we've got that for there. Okay, I'm just going to hand over to Anna now, who's going to carry on from our outputs and core functions. So,
kia ora koutou, ko Anna Douglas toku ingoa, no te ringa hanga toku mahi. So I am a qualifications developer for Waihanga Ara Rau. It's really nice to be here today to speak to you about a couple of the things that we're working on. I think Katie's covered off this slide pretty well in terms of what we do. I guess I could summarize this with talking about some of our team functionality. So we have our engagement and partnerships team that engages specifically with industry, and they oversee the strategic reference groups who inform our strategic sectors. We also have our assurance team who do all of our moderation and assurance activities across the country, making sure that everyone's working to the same playing field. We have our qualification system products team, which is a team that I work in, and we develop qualifications and standards, national standards. And yeah, I guess the main focus for us at the moment is moving into the skill standards space and also working with micro-credentials as well. It's been quite a big push for that this year. We have our strategy and insights team that looks at key industry trends and how that can affect the workforce. We have our corporate services team, and I think that's all. And we have some key Māori interaction going on around the country as well to ensure that we're engaging with our underserved learners and also Pacifica. So yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. I'll move on to the next one. I was going to give you a few key facts that you might be interested about the our construction infrastructure industries. So there were 400,000 people employed in construction infrastructure back in 2021. And basically that's seen a double over the last 20 years. Training numbers increased to over 58,000 in 2021. This was predominantly due to the fees-free scheme coming in 2020. Training number increases since 2019. We've had a huge upsurge in Māori and Pacifica trainees, also Asian and yeah, European as well, but not to quite the extent that our underserved learners have. And over 45% increase in female trainee numbers since 2019, which is fantastic. 64% of workforce organisations are sole traders, interestingly. The size of construction firms hasn't really changed much in 20 years. It's around 3 to 4 employees per business. Yeah, the infrastructure side of things, companies are definitely getting bigger, up to about 6.6 on average employees per business, and 66% of training occurs off the job. So that accounts for our key training providers who we work with closely with ITPs, so your independent training providers, accounting for the vast majority there. So I want to talk specifically about a project that I'm working on at the moment, along with Katy, that's of interest to technology teachers around the country, and that is the review of the BCATs products. So I'm leading the review of all BCATs unit standards and qualifications. It's quite a big undertaking. There's obviously a number of standards at levels 1, 2, and 3, used by, I think it's just over 300 schools throughout the country, and a number of training providers as well. And also we have our 3 BCATs qualifications that are used in the training provider space. So we're starting with the standards review first, and then we're moving into the qualifications review after. But it will be happening in quite a short time frame. We're aiming to have the submission through to NZQA at the beginning of next year. The push for this review essentially comes due to the usual 5-year review cycle that we go through with NZQA for all of our products, but also because of the move into the skill standards space from unit standards. And so as part of this review, we'll be creating skill standards to replace all BCATs unit standards. So this has been a mandate put forward to us from NZQA. And so there will be in existence a number of unit standards for quite a while, but we will be gradually transitioning them over to skill standards. In terms of a transitionary period, we always give everybody who works with these standards a lot of time to familiarise themselves with the skill standards before they have to start using them. So we don't just force it upon everybody as a quick knee-jerk reaction. We're looking at, and we have had our steering group meeting for this review, and it's been decided that we are looking to add merit and excellence grades to the standards. So the reason for this is to recognise individual achievement of our ākonga. And we think that it's really important for those students who really are showing flair through their BCATs training and study that this could be recognised. We're looking at removing the duplication between standards. There is quite a lot of overlap across all levels, and the reason is to ensure that each standard has clear, distinct learning outcomes. And strategically, I guess the fourth main point is that we're looking at creating a new level 3 design standard, and this is specifically to accommodate emerging interest from ākonga in design-focused pathways. So what could this look like? So far it looks as though the qualifications for BCATs will likely remain. Sometimes when there hasn't been a lot of use of qualifications, we do look at expiring them, but there is quite a lot of use of these products at the moment, and so we it doesn't look at this stage as though, oh, what's happening? Oh, going backwards. It doesn't look at this stage as though we will be making changes to those qualifications. The new BCAT skill standards will be developed to replace the unit standards, and so we'll be working with 3 working groups that we've put together from technically, we've been looking for support from teachers and providers around the country, and so we formed 3 groups to work on the standards with those people over the next month or so. And in terms of a transition process, Katy and the assurance team will be working closely with teachers and providers to move from the old to the new, to make sure that everybody's really clear on delivery going forward. So yes, in terms of progress to date, we carried out a lot of information gathering between June and October, finding out, I guess, essentially about usage, key areas that need focus, and some issues that arose with some of the standards in particular. And so that's been gathered, and we'll take that forward into our work with the working groups. I've been working on drafting up the skill standards, and we'll be taking those drafts to the working groups over the next month. And we've already had our steering group meeting, as I mentioned. That was in October. Yeah, so it's all go. I thought I'd just show you quickly. I know many of you will have already seen what a skill standard looks like, but this is an example of a skill standard that's currently on the NZQA website. But this one was created, fortunately for us, specifically around BCATs. So I'll just point out a few key differences between the skill standards and unit standards so that you can get your head around, what these new products will look like when you're presented with them. So you'll notice in the level and the credit and the purpose, it's very similar, except that we'll be aiming as much as we can to make things a lot more easy to read. More plain language will be used to make it more accessible for the person that needs to read it and understand it. We've got a move from the traditional outcomes and performance criteria to learning outcomes and essentially the assessment criteria. So it looks quite different, but it is quite similar in terms of the way that it's structured, in that you have your outcome, and then we have our assessment criteria, which explains what the assessor will be looking for to decide if the learner is competent. There has also been a move to get rid of range statements. So a lot of the range statement information will go into this section, which is the assessment information and grade criteria. And so you'll see a lot of that information in here instead of in the range. As I mentioned, we are moving into adding grades to the standards, and so the grades will go next. We've got an example here of what your grade criteria would look like. And this may be, for some of you, new territory. So again, as I mentioned, we will be providing a lot of support to teachers to ensure that that move into actually having to decide if somebody is just competent or if they're showing enough flair to be given a merit grade or an excellence grade. We're supporting you to make those decisions, and so that you'll feel comfortable going into delivery of the standards when you move into that space. Indicative content is quite a new section for a standard. This is around key learning activities that we suggest should occur before the assessment takes place. And so it's essentially a list of topics that should be incorporated into delivery for working with the learner in the teaching space. We are also providing resources wherever possible down here. This is essentially what used to be in the guidance information in a unit standard, but we'll in here often be referring to a document called Program Guidance, which is another product that the WDCs oversee, which provides support for the people delivering standards around definitions, key learning context, key resources that may support the learning, training pathways and things like that. So that'll be in the resources section often and with a hyperlink so that you can access it through the WDC website. And at the back of the standard is your quality assurance information as usual. Yeah, so that's not a huge amount different. So just to go through the timeline for the BCATs review for you, we are meeting with the Level 1 working group on the 20th of November, a week later with the Level 2 group, early December with the Level 3 group to run through the Level 3 standards. The qualifications will be reviewed with our steering group early next year. We're going to give everybody a bit of a break for Christmas. Won't expect everybody to work through that time. We'll have our project sign off. We're aiming for at the end of March, and the submission to NZQA of everything at the very end of March. Based on NZQA's timeframes at this stage, it looks like we're just allowing a bit of about a 2-month evaluation process to happen with NZQA. So about May will be the final completion of the actual review. And then after that, that'll be the time when Katie and her team come in to work with everybody who will be delivering the new products and the reviewed products in 2025 or from 2025. So yeah, that's me essentially. I'm really happy to answer any questions as best we can. Thanks for letting us speak with you about this this review and our functionality. And I hope you've learned something from it.
And as Anna said, if there's any questions, you can we can send our email addresses to Hamish as well, so you can post them up as well, so you can direct them to us. But otherwise, in terms of links to the skill standard that Anna's put, the QR code goes straight to that NZQA exemplar on there, so that's all good as well. And also, if you want to look at the councils individually as well, I've put the website link in the first slide as well, so that you can contact the correct councils and be diverted to the right person as well in regards to that. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So I will read some of the questions. If you've got more questions, put them in the Q&A, but I'll start with the first one. So what kind of micro-credentials are being looked at?
So at the moment, we haven't actually had any discussion really around micro-credentials. There was some talk, or there was a little bit of discussion around the design, this new design standard we're looking to develop and where that would sit. There is an opportunity potentially to have that as a standalone product that could be added on as a micro-credential, but yet to be confirmed. So very much up in the air and on the table, I'd say at this stage. We'll have to see how the review progresses.
If you are planning to have the new standards to NZQA by the start of next year, when will we be able to use the new standards? And I probably add on to that because you gave a little bit of timeline. When do you think the old standards will become not able to be used?
Well, usually we give a quite a long period of time before the standards are actually expired. Anything between it can be 1 to 5 years. That hasn't been decided yet for these standards. However, based on the program information that will be coming out to support the use of standards in 2025, I would say that we may end up having around a 3 to 4 year period during which you can still use the unit standards, but you'll be strongly encouraged to use the skill standards instead.
And can I just add to that as well? Sorry, Hamish, there is, in terms of the transition into the new standards as well. So the assurance team are planning to do some professional development in Q4, Term 4 around the skill standards and how to implement them, so we get ahead of the grading and how we can actually support teachers with that mahi going forward, as well as looking at project complexity workshops as well in that space and time. So that's the plan going forward. So yeah, so that would be like a professional development opportunity and feedback as well section as well. So, and throughout the year as well, we're also going to be touching base with teachers through the cluster groups as well for any feedback that we have regarding the skill standards, or any questions as well, just to support where we can. So going forward.
If you are looking to implement a new design standard at level 3, will you also be writing a design standards at level 1 and 2 to progress through?
That's a really good question. Thanks for asking that, anonymous attendee. We actually haven't had any feedback at this stage to say that there would be a push to have any design standards lower than level 3. That's interesting though, because we have been looking closely at the competencies that Ākonga are receiving between levels 1 and 3 in BCATs, and making sure that there is a progression through. So I don't see why we shouldn't look at developing standards at levels 1 and 2 for that design side of things. But again, it really comes down to the kinds of Ākonga that we're working with, and whether there would be, I guess, a need. Excuse me. So at this stage, just I would say level 3, but certainly not off the table to develop level 1 and 2 as well.
For me as a secondary teacher, just having a natural progression with the standards through 1, 2 and 3 makes a lot of logical sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think probably the other anyone else can write more questions while we mull, but I'll ask another one off my head, which would be, when you've talked about the other workforce development councils, you're all running on different timelines for different aspects, aren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So just so you know as well, in terms of the plan, because we've only been running 2 years as well, so trying to get ourselves into a system and flow, working across all the councils together. One of the goals, so as part of our assurance plan as well for stage 1, is to look at our cluster groups to make sure that those suit the teachers and help match what's needed for professional development. So that's our plan for the year for stage 1. Stage 2 would be looking at the potentials of going across wider teams across the councils as well. So that's the work is going to start looking at that aspect within assurance as well. So yeah, bigger plans to go across all them together. And I said we are in the same building all together, so it's not not a difficult thing to kind of arrange at some point, but we will be yeah, working towards that as well. So just to support each other, so in that line as we go through those different stages.
It's like we don't have any more questions, so we can move on.
I'll just say though, Hamish, one thing I would add is that we are, as we go through this review for BCATs, we will be circulating information widely to teachers to let them know how it's progressing and the changes that are being made. So what I'd encourage anybody who's interested in the review to do is to let me know if you'd like me to add you to that mailing list. So I'm not sure if I can add this to the chat, but I'll just mention that our email address is qualifications@waihangaararau.nz. And I'm sure we can let you know that email address after this. But yeah, I'm very happy to add anybody to that list so that you get notifications.
We'll probably put out some more information afterwards about some of what we've covered here today.
And if there's any questions around moderation and complexity of projects or any relation to the BCAT standards within the assurance team, we're more than happy to help support that as well. So just reach out if anyone's got any questions regarding that as well. We're really good answering those questions and helping support moderation and connecting up. And if you request a school visit as well, just to support with some work as well, we're quite good at doing that as well, to try and do that with capacity that we have. So yeah, so that's all good.
So, well, follow them on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. So part of wrapping up, if you watch this, fill in the feedback form. I'll leave that there for a second. Also, we appreciate feedback. It helps us inform on what direction teachers like you want us to go in and what information we need to help bring to you. So just closing karakia. Kia mātou katoa, ko mutu mātou a mātou mahi, me kaupapa hoki, arina mātou, ka mātou mahi anō, kia whakatapua mātou ki ngā kaupapa me ngā mea e whakapono. Manakitia mai mātou. Thank you once again. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Hamish. Thank you very much.